Get ready. Come on. Get ready. Hey. Get ready for Betty and Michelle, Phyllis and Stephanie. There's a new show called Good Grief, Good Gossip, Good God, called it G3. Education, celebration, transparency. There's no subject they won't tackle if it uplifts you and me. Good grief, good gossip, good God, G3.
Hello, everyone. My name is Mechelle Porter, and I am here with my beautiful co-host, Miss Phyllis Clark, and Betty Bayé and Stephanie Lackey. If you were with us last week, you experienced what was a powerful, beyond powerful show about grief with some beautiful guests that Phyllis is going to introduce here shortly. And the show just was flowing, and the spirit, I just feel like the Holy Spirit was just flowing throughout the entire show. I'm getting tongue tied, just getting excited and just emotional thinking about just what we experienced last week. It turned into what we thought was going to be a one-part show, turned into a two-part show. So this week you are getting ready to experience, when I say just a blessing on top of blessing, of part two, where we are discussing grief and how we deal with grief.
Yes, Michelle, I was blown away, just by the feeling and just the truth, and the just the sensitivity of it all. And it was just to hear our sisters share their stories, and then to see yourself inside of their stories. That was important to me, because something came up for me that never has before, that I was able to just deal with in that moment by them being so transparent and vulnerable. And so we're talking about Jon'a Joiner, who is the founder of Drink First, the Pour. I love that. It's a self-love activation community for high-achieving women. And we were also graced by the presence of Che'Ronne Briscoe. And she is a mentor to women and girls. And oh my goodness, I mean, just the love and the light that was passed back and forth and through the sharing of those stories. I mean, it really does illuminate a lot for me when speaking and learning more about grief and the restorative practices that came from all of that.
I agree. Let's get back to it. I'm
Yes,
excited to share this with our guests.
yes.
So I'm just trying to process everything that came along with that experience, as well as giving birth to a stillborn, and then trying to process then, once it became real to me, I guess, in a sense, then what did I do wrong? Had I known, kept going to the doctors, letting them give me this medication. So in the beginning, as Michelle has it kind of expressed, is that she had to learn how to let me deal with it on my own terms. And Jon'a said something earlier that is very true. Grief is not the same for everybody. It's different. And I felt, one, I had to be strong. Two, if I broke down, it would show a sign of weakness. But what I eventually learned was, by doing that, I didn't allow myself to grieve. Because I was so focused on trying to be strong, trying to be mommy to an almost 1-year-old, trying to make sure that everybody thought that Che'Ronne was okay. When Che'Ronne was dealing with all types of things, it's even down to when I came home, I noticed that there was people in my house with me around the clock. And I couldn't figure out, why is everybody here? But the instructions that had been given is because reality had not set into me. They didn't know what state of mind I was in. And with me having Casey, they needed to make sure that I was being protected at all times. So I think for the first few years, I told myself that everything happens for a reason. It's okay. God makes no mistakes. And while all of that is true, that was a disguise for me to really deal with what took place in my life and the trauma that came along with it. So, you know, grief, I think it hits you differently because everybody's experience is totally different. As to where some people get time to bond with their kids, or for, you know, for a person like me, as soon as I learned of my child, I was saying goodbye to my child. And, you know, they came in, well, do you want a funeral service? And I'm looking as if this cannot be life for me. This is not what I ever seen coming. And so over the years, I have had to find peace with Che'Ronne. I have had to pray to God to allow him to let me be free and feeling the way that I feel. There's been times that I've been angry with myself. And then there's been times that, you know, it's like I'm having a good day. And in the beginning, I thought grief was going through phases, steps. So you do this, you acknowledge. Then you get to a point to where you say, I can smile, so it's okay. But when in the beginning, not knowing that, I may go back to step one, the initial feeling that I felt, even though there were days that said it's okay and you can smile and she's my angel. And so there were several years before I decided to speak with someone. And I think probably Reagan would have been 14 this year. Probably in the last 5 to 6 years, I've become more open with telling my story. And that's because I was able to be free in not having guilt within myself. And just knowing really that whether I liked it, whether it felt good, God was in total and complete control of everything that transpired and took place.
I'm going to jump in here because I know all of you all probably have something to say. For me, as your sister, as your best friend, I just want to commend you because I've been here from the beginning with you from this. When God took my sweet niece home, it's been a whole process for her to even get to even, I was hesitant. I was like, are you ready to get on the show and talk about it? Because, you know, Miss Betty, you and Stephanie, Phyllis, you all go to church with Che'Ronne. You all didn't know this story. No one knew that she was dealing with all this and holding this all in. And we've all talked about that. As Jon'a was saying earlier, we got to get it out. And everybody deals with it differently. But I just commend her for getting on here and being open and transparent so others can deal. You know, it's okay to deal with it how you deal with it, but it's okay to eventually get to that point and share your story that may help somebody else. And someone else may hear any of our stories and hear Che'Ronne's story and say, oh, I went through that, or I went through something similar. I lost my spouse, or like Miss Betty, I lost my loved one and I wasn't there when they passed, but it's okay for me to feel how I feel. And I'm not alone. I'm not the only one that's gone through this experience. And I just want to commend you because I know it's been a long journey for you. And even she just lost her granny not too long ago. So I know grief is very real and raw for her family right now after losing her granny so recently. But to be at this point about Reagan, I love you and I commend you for just sharing your story so that it may help someone else.
And let me say this, Miss Betty helped me in a way that she didn't even know because she didn't know my story. When my grandmother passed, if you know me, you know, outside of my daughter, my granny and my mother is everything to me. And so when I got the opportunity when my grandmother died, Miss Betty called. Out of all people, she called my mother. And one thing she told my mother was, just when you think about it, just write it down. And it was journaling. And although Mechelle teases me all the time because I have a notebook for every area of my life, chores, shopping, trips, cheer mom. And so finding a notebook wasn't a problem for me, but putting it to use to journal how I felt, and even still now, because grief, it doesn't end. It doesn't have an expiration date on it. You continue to grieve, and it's okay. So I just want to say thank you, Miss Betty, because you touched on that, to say journaling And not only does it help with releasing those feelings, it brings smiles to me. It makes me happy because it makes me remember of those times that I hold so near and dear to my heart.
Well, thank you. Thank you, Che'Ronne. You know, you just never know. Like I said, the one thing about us is we can go to church because we are so good at it. I think Jonah said it earlier. You know, we put the mask on and the thing, and we're so good at dressing up and, you know, standing up in front of the church and helping to welcome in new people, which is one of the other things you did when you're not singing in the choir. But the thing is that we do these things and we don't know each other. It's like we know each other, but we don't know each other. And one of the things I love about this show, I knew all of the women who are the co-hosts on this show in passing, you know what I'm saying, in different ways. But what we've learned about each other since doing the show, and really when I conceived this show, even the name of it, about, you know, the good grief and the good gossip and the good God, I had this idea that I wanted it to be a collective, that I wanted us to share the chores and the gifts. You know, you host one week, you host the next week. And I think that what you remind me of, we never know when we're blessing somebody. You have no awareness of it. You never know when you're in the bathroom in church and you're helping a sister to zip up her dress and say, girl, you look good. We don't even know what that does for her in that day. And so just like that, when we're grieving, you know, we get dressed up, we come back to church, and people, they can send you a card and they know, but they don't know. They don't know because we're so good at wearing the mask. We're so good at getting through it. We're so good at being strong Black women. You know, we can do it all and bear it all and all of that. And I think that sometimes in the quiet, and that's why I love when we were talking earlier about that quietness, that need sometime to be still and to give ourselves permission to cry. So I'm saying anybody, any tears that come out in this show, we don't have to even wipe them away. Because I just feel like God, that's God's cleansing cream. You know, just come on and get those tears out. And that is why it is so important when we get a chance to talk to one another, because we don't really tell our stories. And we learn sometimes not to even trust to tell it. And you really can't tell it to everybody because, you know what I'm saying, everybody can't handle every truth that you have. So I'm just so, it makes my heart happy to hear you say that, because, you know, I see y'all in church, I see your mother on the desk, but I knew that when her mother died, and I told your mother also, I said, the one regret I had is I never, when my grandmother died, I didn't ask my mother enough questions. At the time, I was not a writer. I didn't say, mommy, talk about your mommy to me, because I knew my mother was suffering because her mother died, but I felt bad because I never asked mommy how she felt when her mother died until my mother died, until she died. And then I said, I should have asked mommy more questions about how she felt losing her mother, because I know my world has shifted on its axis, you know? I'm gonna be quiet. I'm going back on mute.
Che'Ronne, I have to tell you, you know, I love you dearly. And I'm fond of your whole family, and your bravery, your transparency has blessed me tremendously in this moment. When you said, this cannot be my life, when you said that, something about you saying that and just freeing yourself over to going through the process of grief and just releasing everything and handling it on your time. You know, our friends, and I know Michelle's heart, our friends love us to death. They mean well, but you took that ownership and said, no, I've got to do it my way. This cannot be my life, and I'm going to handle it the best way that I know how. And knowing you for many years and admiring you and wishing I could sing like you and your mom, you know, just hearing it, like Betty said, we don't know each other's stories, right? We know each other, but we don't know each other. And you being that transparent, I commend you. You and Miss Jon'a, I commend you. I honor you in this moment. Thank you so much. It has really helped me. Thank you. Love you.
Love you too.
Yeah, Che'Ronne, I want to echo all of that, but I also want to connect with you via a side door. And that is because I remember when our daughters first met each other. And my Sydney used to talk about looking up to Casey. She said her name so much in my house at the time, I knew who she was. And because I knew who she was, I knew who you were. And I just want to thank you for raising such a beautiful, brilliant daughter in the face of what you were facing. You're Casey. And I remember just stopping you in front of the bleachers one day at one of the cheer competitions and just telling you how awesome your daughter was. And my daughter was looking at all of that, and trying to be that for herself. And, it's the peer-to-peer relationships that are really important in the world. And I just saw some beautiful things happening with Sydney as a result of your Casey, and how well she coached those teams and gave instructions and helped the girls to find how to be the best, cheerleader they could be. And I give all of that to you, all that credit. All that credit. Thank you so much. I'm so glad I could say that to you right now.
Well, we've had a fabulous. I'm sorry. Go ahead. No, Michelle. Michelle, go ahead.
Jon'a, if she could give just before you go into your wrap up, just a helpful wrap up of something for all of us as we wrap up this show. Then I know Stephanie has her point, and Miss Betty can give us our good gossip.
Something that was coming up for me listening to Che'Ronne's story and how everyone responded to that is, first of all, Black women, we are magical. We are magical. We have perfected the art of survival. Perfected it. So much so, though, to a point where we oftentimes don't know how to not be in survival mode, right? Like, being in long-term survival mode is that chronic stress that we've been talking about. It is that constant weight on us, that constant kind of, burden on our backs, that conversations like this help to make feel a little bit lighter, right? Help to release it. Being able to, as so many of you have said, really get to know each other's story, like really, really get to know each other. The grimy stuff, right? The dirty stuff, the stuff that we cover up and we put makeup on and we, hide from other people, but also from ourselves. And Miss Betty said it, we got to make sure that we find safe spaces to share, but that's something that we should prioritize as well, is finding those safe spaces, because it's time for us to release, y'all. It's time for us to release this burden, this monkey on our backs, this constant, survival mode that we are always in, that we always kind of find ourselves in. And I would like to offer just a couple of strategies and tips on how we can do that, right? One, I would say Ms. Betty talked a lot about journaling, and I am also a fan of journaling. I would also suggest to create a coping kit. I found a box and I filled it with things that keep me grounded and balanced. So in moments where I hit a wall, I pull out my kit and reach for whatever looks like it most be helpful for me in that moment. So some things that are in my kit are a journal. I also have my favorite candle or incense in there. I have a playlist of songs that make me happy, photos of happy memories. I keep a devotional in there. I also have a meditation pillow. because I meditate sometimes as well. I keep a stress ball. I keep a list of affirmations in this coping kit. And then finally, for me, I'm kind of a snacker, so I keep gum. So sometimes it just helps to pop a piece of that gum in. You know, I might be chomping away as I'm kind of thinking through an issue or something. But having it all together in a I call it a kit. Right now, mine is in a basket. So I have all my things in a basket. It could be a box, it could be whatever. But having it all in one place just makes it easy for you to grab it. Another recommendation is to take 5 in the morning. Take 5 minutes in the morning. Ideally, it's more like 30. But if you can do nothing else, everybody has 5 minutes. Take that 5 minutes to pray, meditate, to just have some quiet time and ground yourself before the day gets going, before it gets hectic. You know, people oftentimes picture meditation as like sitting in silence or chanting for 30 minutes. It doesn't have to be that. It can actually be just 5 minutes of you sitting in silence, sitting with yourself. Turn off your phone, sit still, take deep breaths. Actually, deep breathing is incredibly restorative and detoxifying for your brain as well as your body. So then after that, I do 30 minutes. So after I have my 30 minutes in the morning, that's when I have my breakfast. That's when I know my daughter's up and the day is popping. But because I was able to take that time for me, it completely sets the tone for the rest of the day. Another thing I would say is to outsource when you can, right? So again, we want to do it all. We got to be all things and be everywhere and do everything. No, ma'am. No, ma'am. Outsource, delegate, hire help. Look for areas where you can ask for help. I know sometimes asking for help is very, very difficult for us as women, right? But let's normalize asking for help. And hiring it when we need to. And then the last thing I would say is, you know, whenever we can, just to try to get off that emotional roller coaster, right? So this was one of the things that my husband and I were told when he was first diagnosed with cancer. So he was diagnosed 2 months after we got married. So our entire marriage was battling cancer. So for 7 years it was surgeries, it was chemo, it was radiation, et cetera, et cetera. So we were told, don't ride that emotional roller coaster, right? There'll be really great days and there'll be some really bad days. And, you know, we were told your job is to just try to stay even keel. So in those seasons of life that are tumultuous and maybe more challenging than others, right? Try to just get off that roller coaster. My coping mechanism, as some of y'all have said, was to be busy, right? To pour myself into work. But even when we aren't grieving, we often focus on one thing, like getting promoted or losing 10 pounds. So what we're doing is we're building one muscle, but we're neglecting the rest. But to move forward, we have to take a look at the complete picture. Work is good, but how is my mental health? How is my physical health? How is my spiritual health? Right? So that's part of that getting off that emotional roller coaster as well. It's like, okay, let's take a complete picture of ourselves and address the whole, right? Because we're not just one part, we're a whole being.
Excellent advice. You have to take that time for yourself. You deserve it. We work hard, right? So why not play hard? I always admire Mechelle. I always feel like I need to run over to her house with my luggage because Mechelle will just drop everything and go on vacation. And I just love that about her because she's taking care of her, right? And, you know, she's like, peace out. She's taking care of her. And I love it. I love it. So whatever that is for you, you know, if I can jump on my bike and be on my bike 24/7, that's what I would do. But, you know, just whatever it is, do it. Excellent, excellent advice. Betty, I know you have a good gossip for us this evening that you want to share.
I do. And I just want to say, you know what? And we have to be optimistic. So I just made my first plane reservation today. And I'm going home to see my sister. Awesome. I haven't seen my sister in New York in a year. I'm going home to spend a week where I grew up. and just to be with my peeps. And it's not the New York Hilton Hotel, y'all. It's the project where I grew up. I'm
That's fine.
really going home to the
That's
community.
all right.
I'm so proud of
I'm
you.
being optimistic. I'm just saying that I think that's a part of it too, is to also say, yes, but we need to just be optimistic. Even in
Yes,
the
yes,
midst of a pandemic, that
that's right.
I want to live. Now, that's not my good gossip, but
Right. But you got your shield, so
right.
you're good.
I got my shield, baby. That beautiful shield you gave me. Also, I want to thank you, Che'Ronne and
Mhm.
Jon'a, because I think that you have captured what we want this show to be.
Yes.
And some people are confused by our name. The good gossip means, you know, how they say women are always gossiping. Well, there's good gossip. There's the gossip that, you know, girl, what she got on or whatever, but there's the good gossip. So we always got some little good gossip. And my good gossip, and it sort of fits in with what we say. I have this book. I have all these books of meditation, and this is from my book, Everyday Serenity. It's meditations for people who do too much. Okay. And my good gossip to end this show is called The Attentive Heart. When your heart is attentive, your entire being enters your prayer without you having to force it. So the key words in the wise man's teaching are without you having to force it. What are the manifestations of an attentive heart? When your heart is attentive, you notice what is not there more than what is there, the subtleties more than the obvious. You notice the quick wan smile of a friend as she says that everything is fine. You notice that your colleague is absent from a meeting he always looks forward to. You notice that when I greeted you this morning, I had an expression of unusual joy on my face. You are aware that your work partner arrives later than usual. You wonder why. When your heart is attentive, you notice the presence of the divine everywhere and all the time in a handshake or a smile. The attentive heart is in love with life and all its expressions, and for the most part, doesn't miss those expressions, no matter how subtle or indirect. Having an attentive heart is just another name for prayer. Your heart is attentive, but yearns to be more so. The moments and hours you spend in peaceful quietude are to the heart like moisture and sun to a tree. They transform your heart from the dryness of distraction to the vibrant life of seeing what's truly there. That is to attention. It happens on its own without you having to force it. An attentive heart. And that's what we've been talking about, having an attentive heart for people we love. And Stephanie, you are real good at always closing us out. Girl, you're a good closer. So you can take us up out of here. I just want to say on behalf of Michelle and Phyllis Clark, who was our host this week, and Stephanie, we thank you for coming on our show, the G3 as we call it. And we'd love for you to come back at another time and we can, you know, talk about some other parts of our lives. Because like you said, Jon'a, we cannot be under stress all the time. We cannot grieve all the time. So we need to finger pop a little bit. So, okay, Stephanie.
I think you did it well. I think you did it well. Thank you, Jon'a. Thank you, Che'Ronne. We really appreciate you for blessing us this evening. On Betty, you did it well. You've taken us out. So if anyone in our audience wants to get in contact with us, we will go around the room and say this. You can find me on all of my platforms by going to theagileentrepreneur.net. It's my empire of many different things, but you can find all of my social media outlets there. Betty, where can the audience find you?
You can find me now on my bettybayé.com. It's a little out of date because they won't help me. These young people will not help me. So, but it's bettybayé.com. And please send me a message on there and eventually it'll get to me.
Phyllis, where can we find you?
Oh, wow. I can be found at phyllisclarkconsulting.com. So again, contact page on there. If you want to email me, it's Phyllis at phyllisclarkconsulting.com. So.
And the beautiful pearly white Mechelle. Where can we find you?
I can't stop laughing, Miss Betty. Every week it's always
I know.
learning. It's always
I'm trying to get help. I'm soliciting.
We're gonna get
Producer is
together.
listening.
You can find me. I'm on Facebook, Instagram at Mechelle Porter. Also M3 Events, www.m3events.org. I'm also on Facebook and Instagram as well. And before we chime off, I know we talked about each other, but I want Jon'a and Che'Ronne to tell people where to find them, because you never know who might want to just reach out to you guys for help after the show. So if you all can just tell people where to find you as well.
Sure. I can be found on pretty much all platforms at Jon'a Joiner, JONA JOINER, and then as well as Jon'aJoiner.com as well.
And I can be found on social media platforms, Che'Ronne Briscoe, CHERONNE Briscoe, or you can reach me at briscoe429@gmail.com.
Well, again, thank you, ladies, very much for joining us this evening and just blessing us. Thank you to our audience for tuning in and supporting our show, Good Grief, Good Gossip, Good God. Until next week, be blessed. And remember, you can always find us on SSC Live TV, where it's TV our way. Good night.
Good night.